Yo, what's going on, y'all? I am going to give pretty much I'm gonna give you guys my thoughts on this Carmelo Anthony interview that was conducted by Stephen A. Smith. I, I thought I felt that Melo double talked quite a bit. I also felt that he gave two different answers. Pretty much when it was almost like Stephen A. kind of set him up. I'm not saying that he did it purposely. I just believe that some of the questions he asked Melo were pretty much the same questions, but they was just came out differently. Like it was one part in the interview. I can't do the whole interview because I could not find a whole recording of, to play the interview straight through. So I have to pick one segment and I'm gonna just go through one segment and I'm gonna just stop and give my thoughts on it and then play it through. But I chose this one right here. But as I was saying, it was in one segment, which is not in this one, I believe, where Steven asked, did he ask Chris Paul and Harden if they knew that that they knew about him being released? And Melo said, yeah, he called and he called CP. He said his friendship was on the line. CP didn't own up to it. He said, nah, I didn't know. And he also said he spoke with Harden. And in that very minute, that same minute, he pretty much said he don't know Harden like that to make that call to see if he knew. Because Stephen A. was alluding to the fact that, he's the franchise player. They usually make these moves. They run these moves by these guys before they make roster decisions like releasing Carmelo, the guy that they brought in after they let go of Mute and Trevor Ariza, the two hustle guys. I believe they let Harden know. I call the bluff on that. I truly believe Harden knew. It's just that, and I believe D'Antoni knew also. But again, I felt like Melo couldn't say too much. He can go into depth too much because of the simple reasons why he's still trying to get a job as a backup, of course. So I guess he just didn't want to seem to, he didn't want to seem like he was bitter, an ex-bitter all-star, and he didn't want to seem like he was divisive, because he is trying to get on a team. This was not supposed to be like an expose type interview. This interview was Stephen A's way, because the player's been trying to lobby for Melo to get a job. Dame Lillard, he's not even a part of the Banana Boat crew, and he's trying to lobby for Melo to get a job, and there's a lot of Melo apologists out there trying to, they want to see Melo play and they feel that Melo can play, and I believe he can play. But can he play in a team concept? It's the question. And I don't think he can. But that's again, like I was saying, Melo, I feel like he did not want to go. He couldn't go in because right now, Stephen A is just looking out for him with this interview. So I'm gonna say I'm gonna give my 2 cents on certain parts of the vid, and I'm gonna just let it play through.
One would ask the question: you had opportunities on multiple occasions to put yourself in a situation to go after the chip, and instead elected to go after the money. To that you say
With
what?
who though? Who was my options?
Well, again,
The Miami situation, that was just an idea, right? That wasn't even, that was just an idea stages, right? And I was about to sign shortly after that conversation, right? The New York Knicks situation, I was going to Chicago.
Whoa. Let's pause that right there. Now, like I said, this is, you can go look at the whole interview for yourselves. I've looked at the whole interview, played it back like 15 times, man, because I wanted to get everything, I wanted to make sure that I wasn't missing anything. But about the Miami decision, him teaming up with LeBron and D Wade and to go to play in Miami. Earlier in the interview, I believe it was earlier or later, I don't remember. But what I do remember was Stephen A. Asking Melo, like, why, what happened? Why did you go after that? The 5 year, the extra 2 years he wanted to do for the extension, I believe, instead of doing the 3 year. That's what the guys was telling him to do, so he can have an option in the way out of the contract. And Melo replied to him. He said, "I was young and I was naive. Coming from a rough background. I wanted, there's just no way I could put that money on the table. I mean, leave that money on the table." So right now he's saying, it was just an idea, which it was, but he's glossing over the fact that he didn't scoff, he didn't entertain it because he went after the money. And that's what Stephen A. was getting at. Was you trying to win a chip? Was you trying to team up with guys to win the chip? Or you was going after the money? And in Melo's defense, at that time, again, he wasn't with all that teaming up with other superstars. He's always had like LeBron's number in the regular season. When he was in his days with the Denver Nuggets, he made him cry and everything. I don't know if you guys remember, just look up the YouTube clip and you can see when Melo was trashing him, and he's always had LeBron's number up until that point. He always liked to punish guys, especially the superstars and the other all-stars that matched up with him. That was like his thing. He loved to give those guys 30 points a night in and night out basis. He did have a killer mentality as far on the offensive end is concerned. So, and there was nothing wrong with that, with him wanting to beat those guys. So I'll give credit to Melo, because I remember he did not want to team up with them at that time. He was fine where he was at. He loved being in New York.
Derrick Rose, Joakim Noah, I was there, right? I was there. And then I started getting whispers behind the scenes. Yo, look, this person ain't gonna be there. It ain't really right. This and that. And it was all of that started to come up in the midst of my decision making. Mm-hmm. I wasn't gonna let anything cloud that. I met with New York last. They was the last team I met with, because I knew that I was ready to move on from that situation because of what I was dealing with and going through in New York. After that, I met with New York, the last meeting, and said, tell me what you're going to do for the organization, for us to put a team together to go compete and try to win. Mm-hmm. That was my conversation with them. There's a lot of things that was promised, a lot of things that was said. Mm-hmm. And I said, you know what? Because I belong in New York, I'm going to roll with you. I'm going to roll with you.
That sounds great. It's
what they promised him and what Carmelo thought he was going to get was they thought that, well, Melo and his team thought that Phil Jackson was going to coach them. That's exactly what he thought. And that didn't happen. I remember that time vividly. At that time, I wanted him to stay in New York because I felt that, at that time I felt that, and I believe this was before they fired Mike Woodson, if I'm not mistaken. I felt like they could have made a deep playoff run if they put enough high IQ players around Melo. If they had gave him Rondo or they tried to make a pitch to go at trying to see who was available at that time, because there was a lot of aging vets at that time, and him playing with Billups and Kidd, of course that worked out for him because playing with those guys, he every time he played with a veteran type squad where the leader, the point guard was, a vet, he had the most success in that regular season and in the playoffs. He never went far with just him and another ISO one-on-one player that was a prolific scorer with, J.R. Smith and Allen Iverson. It just wasn't cutting it. He needed someone to provide stability on a roster, So, and at that time, I don't believe he was convinced to go play for Coach Tibbs. When the reports came out, I remember they were saying that, you're complaining about the minutes now. Just wait till you go play for Coach Tibbs. I remember, sports talk shows mentioning that, and that the wear and tear that Coach Tibbs that he puts on each player. And then another thing, he don't play D, so they got to cover up for his lack of you just never a good defender. He was never a good defender. So it just wouldn't have worked out in the Bulls, and playing with the Bulls, in my opinion, it wouldn't have worked out, especially with the Jimmy Butler coming up at that time. It's like, nah, I wasn't. I didn't think that would have been a good move, in my opinion.
Believable. But the flip side to it is that people will look at it and they will say, Carmelo Anthony, you've been in the league for 16 years. Mm-hmm. You've been to one conference championship. You've never played in an NBA Finals. Your man, LeBron James, 9 NBA Finals, 3 championships. D. Wade, your other brother, 5 NBA Finals appearances, 3 championships.
Can't compare.
That's right. Can't compare. How do you feel about that? How does that make you feel, particularly when you're in their presence?
As a competitor, it makes me feel like, damn, why not me? What's going on? But on the flip side of that, I've never been put in those situations before. I've never had the teams that LeBron James has had. I've never had the teams that D. Wade has had. I've never had the teams that a lot of these stars out there has had. It was
No. You see what I mean? Okay. All right. Melo. In his time in Denver, I believe they had about 3 consecutive seasons where they won 50 plus games, and this is with Chauncey Billups at the helm. And that was in the West. He finished first in his division. I forget what seed they were in, but it wasn't a bad one. I'll tell you that. He was definitely on a good team. Again, it was just the era you was in. You wasn't going. Your Melo's style of play, he was not going to win a championship, unless he allowed his teammates to do more. Just like Kobe. Okay, Kobe was the same type of volume shooter. Okay, Jack, even until he retired, he was pretty much the same. But on his championship runs, minus Shaq, he pretty much allowed his teammates to do more. Melo never did that. Melo never did that. His game wasn't made to, and like his game was not made to make anybody better. He was just simply a high post, face you up in the mid range, pull a 15-footer right in your face, or just blow by you and try to get the N1 layup. Or he'll just post back you down and play bully ball, But his type of his game just was not. He wasn't gonna lead a team to the championship as a first option, man. That's just the facts.
It's always been me.
But he had good teams, and mind you, he was on another 50-win team under Mike Woodson. They won 54 wins, so you had some success there, my friend.
Responsibility do you have with that? Because one could argue, even though you ended up forcing your way out of New York, you could have potentially done that sooner.
They forced me out of New York.
Well, I'm just saying. I mean, people like me were begging you to leave or what have you, but you wanted to stay in New York, even when it was clear they were not going to be a part of the championship equation.
Right. I was naive. I believed in them so much that
you believed in the New York things. I want to make sure I outside the port.
I believed in what I was saying.
Okay.
What was told to me.
Okay.
I believe what was told to me, and I was naive to anything else. I felt comfortable. I was home. I was on my square in New York, and I wanted that. Nobody else wanted that. So I wanted to do something that was special in New York. I was putting all the chips on everybody else to say, yo, give me some people here. Put something around me, and then let's give me a fair chance to see what's going on.
Right now, as you sit here, you're free to land anywhere else. Damian Lillard, star guard for the Portland Trail Blazers, just became the first $250 million player in the NBA. 6 years, $250 million for the Portland Trail Blazers, and deserves it.
He deserves it.
He tweeted out that he was in support of you having a farewell tour, but then I spoke to him directly, and he was like, really, it's not even about that. I just think he was done wrong. This is a guy that should be in the league. Don't tell me that Carmelo Anthony shouldn't be on an NBA roster.
Right.
But you ain't in Portland.
Right.
LeBron James in LA. They got Anthony Davis. They had Kuzma.
Well, I think Dame Lillard is a smaller version, prototype of a Carmelo Anthony. In the sense of his mentality. Like, you get a lot of these some of these combo guards, they take on the persona of bigger guards, all-time scoring guards, shooting guards, or small forwards. Like Kyrie takes on a persona, like the mentality of Kobe Bryant. So more than likely, the way he acts in some of the situations that he's in, whatever environment that he's in, he kind of mirrors Kobe. This year, also he was mirroring, mirroring LeBron to, an extent with the passive aggressiveness. But, you have Dame Lillard again. He's another guy, this is, we right now, everybody knows player movement is a big thing, is a thing now. He could have chosen the dip himself. Same situation that Melo was in. He could have chose to dip, but he took the money, $200+ million. And like he told Shannon, Sharp, he said he'll, if he's forgotten, he'll be one rich, forgotten motherfucker, right? So, that's why I feel that Dame is taking up from it again. They both shit. They have like that clutch gene. It's like, to me, they mirror each other. Not too good on defense. They both cut. Melo hit big time shots. Again, his game wasn't great for team concept basketball wise, but in the clutch, Melo will hit some big time shots, man. Lillard he just had more success in the playoffs than Melo. So yeah, let's keep it going.
When they needed to build a roster, they had about 11 roster spots to fill. You ain't there.
Right.
CP3's in Oklahoma City. Had he gone to Miami, he probably would have made sure they took you there. But you're looking at guys in the league that are perceived as having the necessary clout to have you on a roster. Does it strike you as a tad bit odd that you're not on a roster considering the amount of friends that you have that would speak up on your behalf?
It strikes me that I'm not on the roster along with, due to my talent first, right? Due to my skill, knowing what I can still bring to this game, right? You mean to tell me it's 30 teams in NBA? I can't make a 15-man roster out of 30 teams in NBA? That's why I start to, think about this a lot more.
Melo. You know who made a good point about this outside of Max Kellerman? Doug Gottlieb. I forget his name. His name is Doug. He's been on this as well, man. And I got to give him some props because he's been calling a spade a spade. Melo, your game, you are a classic throwback, one-on-one elite scorer. You cannot, and this is why I say the hate. This is why I say when people hate on Steph Curry and Clay, for this very reason, is because the way Steve Kerr implemented, and mind you, D'Antoni really came in and helped revolutionize this run and gun style offense, even though they had teams back in the not in the early 80s, but in the late 80s that put up a lot of points also. But D'Antoni in the hero ball era, he pretty much came and helped revolutionize it, this style of play. 3-point shooting. Outside, not inside or outside inside, just straight shoot the 3-pointer until you can't shoot no more. And fortunately, Steve Kerr, who's worked with Mike D'Antoni, implemented that same system along with the Spurs system, and he fused it with arguably two of the greatest shooting tandem this game has ever seen. So, and the triangle offense, don't forget that. Steve Kerr pretty much helped, and the way that the Warriors been playing these past few years, man, it's just like these ISO guys, they are a dying breed, man. It's like you have to be able to catch and shoot. You have to be able to move the ball. You gotta play D. It's team basketball, man. Right now, it's like ball movement is everything. If you're gonna play in that system where you're just gonna shoot threes, but have one guy control the pace, like how the Rockets have it, like James Harden has it, then you have to be a prolific scorer like James Harden. Melo is not a prolific scorer anymore. Not like that. He cannot do that in the course of 82 games. He cannot. He'll give you that maybe about for a good 20 games before something, he's not the same he's not the same type of player. He's not the same kind of player. And Mike D'Antoni couldn't even use him then when he was on the Knicks with that style. So Melo, I hate to say it, bro. I believe Melo's going to get a job, but will it work? That's the question. And I believe he's going to get a job, and depending on what team he's on, I don't believe it's going to work out, man. Unless he gets on a team that is in desperate need of scoring off the bench. They need scoring off the bench. And that's it. But your ISO game, Melo, is ancient, man. Like, you can't go 7 for 37 anymore, bro. Days is out.
30 teams. I can't make a 15-man roster in this NBA.
Well, part of it is the game, but the other part is the politics. In other words,
Right.
you better than at least 10 to 15. I would argue obviously better than that. But at least the 10th to the 15th man of the roster, definitely you're better than all of those guys. The flip side is because of your resume, because of your pedigree and history, could he accept a lesser role? To that, Carmelo Anthony says what? Anthony says what?
1,000%. And I had to do that. I had to do that in Oklahoma City. That was a whole totally different role. I had to accept a role that I wasn't willing to accept at that point in time. And I wasn't willing to accept that role of coming off the bench in Houston because that never was relayed to me. It was, you are the piece that we need to get us over the hump to win a championship. I went in there with that mentality. We need Melo to come in here to get us over this. I watched it. I watched the previous year. I saw where I can plug myself in that. And I really believed that we were going to do that. But when I get there, it was something totally different. The dialogue started getting less and less. It was no more conversations. It was just doing, and then I got to react to the things that's being done. Look on the board.
Because, Melo, they was trying to get rid of you, bro. Like, once those numbers came out, every time you came on the floor, and they showed the plus minus, and they were showing, the advanced stats and how your impact was on the floor versus you being off the floor. It was just nothing to be said by then, bro. It didn't matter if you scored 28 points against whatever team that they, talking about in your short time there. It didn't matter because these guys are stat analytic guys. Excuse me. They're stat geeks, man. If your numbers wasn't efficient or proficient enough, man, it's crazy. It's crazy how it's like you can see he doesn't get it. He doesn't get it. If you have to ask that question, Melo, you don't get it, bro. And the bench thing, remember when you did the press conference with PG-13, Russ, a reporter asked you about coming off the bench. So there were talks about you coming off the bench too, Melo. Let's not get sidetracked with that, bro. You can't gloss over that. And they even mentioned you coming off the bench in Houston. So, I mean, again, this is what I mean by the double talking, and I feel right now he's just trying to save face, and again, I have no problem with it because he's trying to get a job, man.